Hello and welcome back to the Motorsport Baithak podcast. I'm your host DD and joining me once again today is my friend and your co-host Vedant. On this episode, we will be talking about the Formula E Monaco weekend. So let's grab some chai, take our seats, ready our opinions, and dive right into the conversation. Hello Vedant. That was an exciting weekend in Monaco for Formula E. You'll have to give it to them. And there's a lot to talk about, especially with all the moves that were put in during the race and also about our last podcast where we talked about the Formula E and Formula One and Formula E joint weekends and the possibility of hosting them at Monaco.
Yeah, definitely, Divya. The anticipation going into Formula E's first run at the full Monaco layout was huge, and everyone was expecting a great race, and it delivered. It delivered thoroughly, and I believe it was the Formula E Monaco race was better than any Formula One Monaco race I have seen in the last few years.
You know what? I will have to agree with you there. Definitely way more overtaking, way much more racing. For the first 20 minutes, it just seemed like it was like a Formula One race where people weren't really overtaking on the other parts of the track except the two straights. The start-finish straight and the one that goes through the tunnel. But even then, way more overtaking than Formula One, like you said. But towards the end of the race, especially after that last safety car, the last 7 minutes of the race, it was just crazy. People were putting in moves at all the wrong places and still pulling them off.
I mean, yeah, Mitch Evans, that overtake on Antonio Felix da Costa going up Beau Rivage was just unbelievable. You do not make that overtake in any racing series. I mean, you don't even make that overtake in a video game, but he did it, and uh, kudos to him. I mean, unbelievable.
Absolutely, that was a ballsy move, and both of the drivers came out unscathed from that overtake, which was really surprising. But yeah, Mitch Evans showing what he's made of and how aggressive he is, and how just living up to his name. He's one of the most aggressive drivers on the grid, and we know that, and he just lived up to that name. Although he did finish P3 sadly. With Antonio Felix da Costa putting in a last lap move to take the win, and Robin Fries taking away second place from Mitch Evans at the finish line because Mitch Evans ran out of energy right out of last corner on the last lap. But again, a lot to talk about. So I'll throw it to you, Vedant. Why don't you walk us through everything that happened before the race? Because I was sleeping.
So, like the top six of qualifying in the Super Bowl were Da Costa, Fries, Evans, Verne, Gunther, and Oliver Rowland. Now, what happened was in the Group 4 of Super Bowl, Sergio Sette Camara spun, and that ruined the laps of Sebastian Buemi and Tom Blomqvist. Now, we have complained a lot about Formula E's qualifying format and all these things, but I think I have to give it to them. They allowed Buemi and Blomqvist to go and do a lap, which we don't see anywhere else in motorsport, right? Like they lost the lap because of an incident and they were allowed to do a lap, so that was
And
good, I believe. I think.
that is probably one in many decisions that have gone in favor of the drivers from Formula E,
Yeah.
especially looking at the past few weekends this season.
Yeah, but then it meant that Oliver Rowland had very less time to get into his car and go out for the Super Bowl, which meant that he missed that window and his Super Bowl lap was disqualified. Now, even before Super Bowl in qualifying Group 1, Nick DeVries was accused of blocking Sam Bird and the people behind him. But we know it is common in Formula E, and obviously Sam Bird and Mitch Evans and Robin Fries did get their laps done. There was enough time, but again, they do run the risk of losing out on the stipulated time. But strangely, Nick DeVries on a bump, he switched something and he lost 50 kilowatt hour power on that lap, which meant that he would start last. So that was a very strange incident. But yeah, other than that, the qualifying was event free.
Absolutely. And we'll dive into the race in 1 second. But we've talked about what happened in the qualifying with the Mercedes. Now we know they went out in Group One, and we know Group One qualifiers don't do as well. They don't go as higher up in the grid. But it was kind of disappointing from the both Mercedes, who are at least so far this season they have been the fastest car on the grid, the most efficient car on the grid, and we had both Nick De Vries and Stoffel Van Doon, starting outside the top 10, and even during the race, they couldn't make up any places, unlike most races.
Yeah, it was a very strange weekend. Stoffel apparently did not get enough temperature in his tires for the qualifying lap, so that cost him a lot. And Nick De Vries, as we said, had that incident where he, hit that switch, but both of them did not finish the race even. Van Doon had a braking issue, and Nick De Vries had some technical issue which we do not know, but a very disappointing weekend for the two championship contenders.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now let's talk about all there is to talk about in the race. Jean-Eric once, especially during the race, looked really clumsy in all his overtaking moves throughout the weekend, especially when he was trying to overtake Robin Freins for, I think, third place it was, and then Mitch Evans cut the corner, I think, down in the Nouvelle chicane, if I'm right, But again, a very clumsy move from Jeff on Robin Freins into that corner, and they both literally got stuck around not the bollards, but the curbs there. And then Mitch Evans taking some advantage and being really cheeky about how he gave that position back once he was asked to.
Yeah, he gave the position back, which was fair, but he gave it while activating the attack mode. So a great play, great bit of wit. But yeah, Jean-Eric Verne has been a little clumsy. Even last year we saw him not performing to his best, and he's a two-time Formula E champion. He's the most successful Formula E driver, but he is not performing at that level. And I mean, getting beaten by Da Costa ever since he joined the team has been one of these has put a lot of pressure on Verne. So I think he just needs to take a few steps back, recalculate himself, and go ahead. But it was a overall good weekend for him because he finished P4, which is a good result in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, overall, a great weekend for the DS Techeetah team too, with Da Costa finishing P1, so taking home a lot of points, the DS Techeetah team. But again, you have to give it to Da Costa. He remained patient. He didn't put in any harsh moves, and he put it out on the last lap when he knew Mitch Evans was running low on energy. So, some great strategy from DS Techeetah too.
Yeah. Now I want to talk about something. If you look at the qualifying, if you look at the grid, and if you look at the race results, you'll see the top 6 on the grid, the Super Pole runners, are the same finishing order as the race, and that you'll say, okay, that is a typical race around the streets of Monaco.
But that does not tell the whole story at all.
It was, I mean, it was one of the. See, there was not a lot of dramatic action as such.
It was not as Formula E as you would expect from a Formula E weekend. It was a very motorsporty race weekend.
Yeah, and I think that is what Formula E needs at this moment, because that debacle at Valencia and those strange races at Rome where everyone's crashing into each other and all these things do not portray a good image for Formula E. This race and at this layout, the full layout did portray a very, very positive image for Formula E, which they needed. They needed it so much at this moment in time.
Absolutely, like we've been saying, all that Formula E needs right now is a quiet race weekend, and that is exactly what they had and much more. So does this mean, can we hope that Formula E will be heading out to Singapore pretty soon on the F1 track circuit there? But again, that's a question for later. That's a question for later. But let's talk about Robin Freins. Robin Freins had a great start of the race. He took He took the lead from Da Costa, but then again, multiple times throughout the race, you could hear Robin Franz's race engineer come on the radio and say, hey, we need to conserve some energy. Let's slow down the pace. Let's slow down the race a little bit. But Robin Franz was not paying much attention to that, and he tried to, basically run away with the race, which did not, end up in his favor. He ended up second, I believe, at the end of the race. Obviously, not as bad as Mitch Evans. Mitch Evans nearly ran out of energy, but again, it did not work in favor of Robin Franz. And you could argue basically that Mitch Evans and Robin Franz made the exact same mistake, but at different stages of the race. So, which again brings forward the very fact that how much efficiency and energy conservation is how integral it is to Formula E itself and the racing in Formula E.
Yeah, definitely. So, like what Franz did, he used a lot of energy earlier, and but he had time to regenerate the energy and conserve it, right? But what Mitch Evans did was a little tricky because like he used a lot of his energy towards the end of the race. And if you look at that final shot where Franz and Evans are crossing that finish line, now if you move that finish line a few 50-60 meters ahead, I believe Evans would have lost another couple of places because we could see Vern and Gunther and Roland right in the background.
Now that you mentioned Maximilian Gunther, he had a brilliant race in Monaco. We've all said that he has a lot of potential, and finally Maximilian Gunther delivered on his potential and brought home points for the BMW and Andretti Motorsport team. And at the same time, Rene Rast was having a good race, but unfortunately had that little crash, I think, into turn 1, and then he moved his car onto Borovage and parked it there, which brought out the safety car, which, at the end gave us a brilliant race. But again, Rene Rast having a great weekend, but, failing to make it last long enough to bring home some quality points. But that's all from my side. Not a whole lot to talk about, but I'd say just the perfect weekend that Formula E needed. And I think Lucas Di Grassi also came out in support of the weekend that Formula E had in Monaco, and he was like, this is what we need, this is what Formula E needs. No drama, nothing, just a plain good old weekend of motorsport.
Yeah, exactly. And as you mentioned the second safety car, so Formula E brought out this new regulation after Valencia that if there are 5 minutes left on the clock, they won't reduce any energy. And I remember we were talking that like it is more than 5 minutes left, so there would be energy reduction, and I think it was 30 or 40 seconds the difference. But had that safety car run a little longer, Mitch Evans would have won the race. So
yeah, probably, absolutely. But I think regarding that rule that Formula E came out with, I wonder if that says we won't reduce energy further than what you need to run the car for 5 minutes plus 1 lap, if that is what it means. Because if there's a safety car like we had, with 12 minutes remaining in the race, and it went down to 6 minutes remaining in the race, or it went down to 4. Formula E, I think, would still want to take out energy from 7 minutes worth of energy behind the safety car, and then not do any further reduction for the last minute, when they restarted 4 minutes remaining in the race. So I'm not really sure what that regulation is about, but we'll probably get one of the examples from the Formula E race because there's always so much happening.
Yeah, definitely. In the end, let's come to our Mahindra team. Alexander Sims had a very disappointing qualifying, and he crashed out on the first lap, which was a very, very, very a disappointing weekend in a whole. But Alex Lynn was running roundabout in the points all the time and finished 9th, so which is a good couple of points for the team.
Absolutely. Now let's look at the drivers and the team's championship stands. Robin Franz takes the lead with 62 points, with Nick De Vries in 57, since he didn't really get any points from this round. So a slim lead there for Robin Franz, followed by third in Mitch Evans with 54 points, and then Antonio Felix da Costa with 52, Sam Bird with 49, and Stoffel Vandoorne falling down 4 places to 6th with 48 points, and Jeff falling closely behind with 46. So again, this championship is really close, unlike last year especially, and hopefully it'll go down to the wire. Now let's look at the team's championship. We have the Mercedes-Benz EQ Formula 18 with 105 points, but Jaguar has made up points and they are sitting just 2 points behind at 103. The DS, the Cheetah team, taking a lot of points this weekend, they're sitting at 98, only 7 points behind the leaders. So again, even the Constructors' Championship has become really close with the DS, the Cheetah joining the party at the front of the grid.
Yeah, no, I think, I wonder if Nick Cassidy were an experienced Formula E racer, with a couple of seasons under his belt, he would have been right there in that title fight, because we have three teams. Yeah, the Jaguars, the Mercedes, and the Virgin Racing team, and the Cheetah. Sorry, 4 teams fighting it out for the top step of the drivers and the constructors championship. So it is a very interesting championship going on right now.
Absolutely, like Robin Fran has 62 points, which is 4 times as many points as Nick Cassidy, like you point out, and you're right to say that if Nick Cassidy were to deliver even if he had twice as many points, the Envision Virgin Racing team would have been leading the championship right now. But it's not the last Formula E World Championship, and I'm pretty sure there'll be more opportunities for the Envision Virgin Racing team to win. But that doesn't mean they can't still win this year. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Which brings me to the last question of this podcast, Vedant. How much more excited are you after watching Formula E race in Monaco to have a Formula 1 Formula E joint Grand Prix weekend in Monaco? Don't worry about the logistics now. That is up to the up to the event coordinators and everyone else. Up to the stakeholders, teams, and who else is concerned with organizing events, right? But as a fan, how excited are you to have a F1 FE joint weekend in Monaco?
Oh, I'm definitely very excited for it. And I mean, watching cars go around the streets of Monaco is obviously a special feeling. And watching these two great championships at the same weekend or at the same week per se would be an extraordinary event and a proper gala.
Absolutely, especially when Formula E might just take away the limelight from Formula 1 in regards of some competitive and exciting racing. So, yep, I'm all for it too, just like you are. But that's all from my side, Vedant. Any last thoughts from you?
Yeah, so nothing from this weekend, but next up we are going to Mexico, to Puebla, which is a permanent racing facility, which means there will be a lot of energy conservation going on. We might see something like the Valencia race 2. We don't want to see it, but we might just end up in that situation. But again, it will be a test for Formula E to see how these cars work in these kinds of circuits. Halfway down the season, and yeah, the last 8 races to go.
Yeah, and that shouldn't put you off because, firstly, again, I would like to mention if you haven't heard a F1 joint event discussion podcast, I think the first venue that was suggested by Formula E and Formula 1 stakeholders was this circuit in Mexico where both Formula E and Formula 1 race, except on like a little different layouts. So again, a lot of reasons to watch the Formula E weekend in Mexico, so keep your eyes peeled for that too. And once again, Vedant, thank you for joining me on the podcast here today once again, and I'll catch you on the next one.